Hello wonderful humans, it's so nice of you to join me again. I know I always say that or something similar, but I'm really thrilled that you're here and watching this. I'm going to continue today talking about the Dragon Reborn, chapters 7 through to 13 today. I can't wait, I'm really excited as always. Am I ever not excited to talk about these books? No, I'm never not excited, or so far anyway. We'll see. I do hear it becomes a bit of a slog later. So before I jump in today, I've been reading a few of the comments, haven't replied yet, we'll get onto that. And I just want to point out, sometimes I'm going to say things that are headcanon for me. They're not. I know that there's no basis for fact. I think one thing I said that for me, Lowell is the author of Wheel of Time. I was mostly joking around that, but it's a piece of headcanon for me. Don't take me seriously when I say some of these things. I'm enjoying myself. You know, sometimes I literally just think of these things while I'm sitting here talking to you. You know, headcanon. It's fun for me. And I may get disproved later in the book, but I also might find more proof that suits my fact, even if Robert Jordan never meant for that to actually be the case. That's fine. So things like that do happen, and I'm going to say things that aren't always true, and I know that. Just go along for the ride. That is the joy of all you wonderful people being able to see into my head as I read these books. This is going to be no one else's experience. I'm going to miss things. I'm not going to notice things. I'm going to pick up on things that aren't true. And just roll with it. This is my experience and I'm loving it. So I hope you are too. Anyway, before I get into it, have you got any examples of that, of headcanon from the first 3 books? Don't tell me anything for later books. But is there anything that you like to believe or you think about the characters or the plot or anything that aren't true but you like to think are true? Even if it's not in Wheel of Time, maybe you've got another series that you've read that you've got these pieces of headcanon. You know, we've all got them. Let me know down in the comments though if you've got something like that, because let me know that I'm not alone. I know I'm not alone. There's a whole heap of people on the internet who have their own headcanon. We all have it. Anyway, enough about that. I'm going to get started with chapter 7, The Way of the Mountains. And this was great place to start today because I loved the scene of Moraine fishing with Perrin and Lowell. I just thought this was brilliant for many reasons. There's a flash of a sense of humour here, not that either of them notice in the moment. They're very serious. And then her managing Perrin almost as payback for standing up to her in the last chapter. I think these sides of Moraine are really important to see, and I know she carries the weight of the wheel on her shoulder, but it's nice to see her drop her guard even a little bit. I'd like to see a version of her where she is a little bit more relaxed and can be maybe a little bit more herself. I feel we've seen a glimpse of what Moraine could be like if she didn't feel like she was carrying everything. I really enjoyed seeing this other side of Moraine, and I think it was just beautiful. Perrin and Moraine both took steps forward, but have gone back again. Perrin is still scared of being near the wolves. He didn't even thank them for their help, shutting them out completely, which I'm really sad about. I know Perrin will get there. He'll get there eventually. He has to. It's his character story. It's his growth. His journey, and he can't get there too fast. There's still quite a few books to get through, so he's got to take his time. Just like Moraine has to take her time opening up and sharing things, and but yeah, it's always constantly that step forward, step back. Anyway, that's all fine. I'll get more of that later, I hope. I am hoping for more interactions with Lan. As he's been tracking, we've seen really little of him at this stage, and I think he could really help Perrin accepting his wolfness and his role in this big picture if Lan is around and can spare Perrin the time. I think that could be really good for him. I just want Perrin to have a mentor. I think I really love that relationship, and I think that's probably why I get so frustrated with Moraine, because Moraine could be that relationship for a lot of these characters, but because of her personality, because of her role in the books and all those kind of things, she doesn't step up to be a mentor. And I love the mentor character in a book. It's one of my favorite character roles. I mean, the mentor character often ends up getting killed off. I don't particularly want that to happen. But I do want Perrin to have a mentor, so I hope that if it's not Lan, that's fine. I just hope that he does come across someone at some point. For him, I'm sure he's had, I mean, he was an apprentice, so his boss, the blacksmith, would have been a bit of a mentor to him. So I hope he finds someone else. Anyway, I'm rambling. I apologise. That reminds me, in the last chapter, I don't know how that reminded me of that, but you know, that reminds me. In the last chapter, Min caught Lan off guard with talk of Nynaeve. Because I was writing about Lan. Okay, I'm following my train of thought now. Lan thought he was so unreadable, yet people keep working it out. They notice it, and it's not a very well kept secret at all about him and Nynaeve and whatever their thing is. It has to make him question himself a little bit about how he maybe isn't as unreadable as he thought, and that also plays into that whole being around these people, being around Tarvillon, being around the Two Rivers folk. He's letting his guards down a little bit. Maybe he's losing some of his edge, or maybe he'll feel like he's losing some of his edge if people can start reading him. I mean, he's got to make allowances for someone like Min, who has a supernatural gift and probably saw something linking them together. But I can't imagine it'll be sitting right with him that someone can read him that way. Maybe Perrin's journey at the moment is that he needs to learn how to take command, or whatever Moraine's version of command is. I don't even think Moraine is a commander, she's bossy. But maybe Perrin needs to learn how to take commands like this that don't always make sense to him, or don't always sit well with him, or any of those kind of things, so he can in turn do the same for other people, give commands, not always have to explain things. Or maybe I feel that what Perrin is learning in this chapter with his interactions with Moraine could be, I don't know, they could be important to his growth in regards to his role later, and that I'm not going to know until I finish reading the series. But he's learning things, and it's not just about it's not just the little things, there's things that he's learning here, and I think it's not a bad thing. It's like in the last book when Rand had Lowell and Hurin and was learning command. In that sense, I feel that Perrin could be learning similar things, but in a completely different way, more appropriate to an apprenticeship. In his model, he needs to learn by observing and by doing later, I guess. Yeah, anyway, I don't think I'm quite explaining it, but until I get to the end of the book, I don't think that's going to make a lot of sense. But I do think that could very well play into it. Part of his growth. All of the villagers, I continue on here, all of the villagers could do with a little bit more of her ruthlessness and distance, so emotions don't cloud their judgment. And again, maybe that's part of Perrin's journey, is he's going to be observing Moraine. We know that Perrin is incredibly observant. He will be picking things up, even if he doesn't work out what's going on right now. As he has more information, he'll piece it together, and he will learn from that, and he will develop more skills, and he will be able to cope better in the big world that he has to work in now, when he can't go back to the village permanently at the very least. Chapter 8, Jara. The encounter with Noam will be enough to have Perrin on edge, denying his inner wolf even more. This is terrifying for him. And it's also made me think maybe it's a good idea, until he can learn more about it, that he is scared of it, that he's not embracing it. So that's made me as a reader rethink maybe how I'm viewing Perrin, and it does make me also think that maybe Perrin in one of his alternate lives, not past lives, one of his alternate lives that he lived through in the last book, or maybe several of them, he took the same journey that Noam is in. So he lost himself to the inner wolf, and that's why he's behaving the way that he is. Just a thought, but I think it makes sense, and it probably makes me a little bit more forgiving, less frustrated with Perrin and his inability to access this sort of, or try and learn how to use this gift. I do think he needs to find Elias again, or someone similar, if not Elias, so that he can learn those skills. And I'd say that I still think that could be where it's headed, that will be who will be Perrin's main mentor. I hope anyway. I hope that he gets to learn those skills and doesn't have to learn them all himself. I don't think that's necessarily always the best thing. Rand's presence appears very disruptive. That Tavern is really becoming clear. I don't think it's really been as obvious in the past. So he's obviously getting stronger in his Tavernness. It was hinted at before in The Great Hunt by Gowan. People being inspired to act in different ways and being drawn to him and so on. So it was hinted at that he was having an impact on people around him. But I don't think we really saw it until this book. And again, that's the beauty of seeing these things through Perrin's eyes, is we're looking at the aftermath of Rand passing through. We're not looking at Rand passing through. We're looking at the effect that he had. So I think that's a really valuable point of view to be having at the moment, to really get, as I said in the last video, that stepping back and continually stepping back a little bit further to see what's going on with these Tavern. So I guess that his presence is enough for people to do things they hadn't had the courage to do, or to move the pattern forward in whatever way it was wanting to move in, or if the pattern wasn't certain, or it was unclear of which way the pattern was going to go, his presence solidifies it and pushes people to action one way or the other, depending on what's going on. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's not so good. I think that's a really great thing. I love this idea. I think these people who can have the ability to impact in such a way. What I'm really wanting to see is how Mat and Perrin's presence impacting people. Are they having the same impact? Or will they have the same impact, but it's not clear yet because we haven't got people following them like we've now got Perrin following Rand. So it's made me start thinking, because Perrin and Mat, I think, are really going to come into their own at some point, and we're going to start getting more clarity. Of course, we're going to start getting more clarity at some point. And I know they're not as strongly Tavern as Rand, but they're still Tavern, and they still have the ability to do what he's doing. And I want to see that as well, because I think that could be really cool to see the contrast of how this strong Tavern, this Dragon Reborn, impacts things in comparison to how Perrin and Mat still impact things in this great way, but it's less obvious in comparison, I guess. Am I explaining that well? I think that's what I'm thinking anyway. I'd like to see more about what's going on. Now, Moraine grudgingly explained to Perrin why she didn't need to ask about Rand, but maybe acknowledges very slightly that he was right to talk to the innkeeper in this situation, Simeon. If only to find out he knew about her, and later we realise he knows more about Perrin, including the wolf stuff, and that he's wanted by the Children of the Light. So unlikely allies, good people who look out for each other, is what I've written here. So Perrin, maybe one of his great gifts is he's going to be able to find people that he can trust, or he can instill loyalty in people who might be swaying that way anyway. Maybe, I don't know. I'm literally taking a stab in the dark there. But I do really like that Perrin is taking small actions and Moraine is learning from that maybe she's not always handling things in the only way that they can be handled. I'm not saying that she's actually acknowledging that she didn't do, or she could have got more information, because maybe Lan could have got that information in a different way, but Perrin went about it in a way that worked, and given the situation, it paid off. Might not always pay off as well. I wonder if Perrin is going to run into Noam again at some point, and whether that comes into play, whether he runs into him in his wolf self, I don't know. It will take a while for him to work through this encounter, but maybe it will help him realize that he has to work through and learn his abilities as soon as possible, because it has to be possible. We've seen it with Elias. So he now has these two examples of if he learns and works out how to go about it, he could become more like Elias. But if he doesn't, and he gives into that wolf side, he becomes more like Noam. So we've got these two examples. Perrin's got to be able to learn something from this. I hope. Rand definitely sounds like he's going mad, but I do still feel it's more connected to trauma. I do think that there is some impact from the taint. I do think that that's definitely it. But I think in this sense, it's more trauma and PTSD than the taint. His whole life has changed and nothing makes sense for him, and he feels that no one else can help him or be trusted. I think that's really, really key to Rand's story at the moment. Chapter 9, Wolf Dreams. I can't quite believe it happened, but someone actually went to Moraine for advice. Good work, Perrin. I was really, really proud of Perrin in this moment, because he realised that Moraine was the only one in this situation who could help him, and he needed that advice. Although I feel that she could have been more sympathetic. She's a bit hard. I get not wanting to endanger the struggle against the shadow, but no wonder no one wants to ask her for help when all she does is tell him it's dangerous and that he has no choice. Harsh. Moraine could learn some people skills. She hasn't needed them, obviously, but she could do with some more. I do appreciate her admitting she doesn't have the information, or all the information he's needing, or much at all, but find it amusing that she defends her lack of knowledge with, they didn't know anything in the Age of Legends either. So it's not her fault that she doesn't know anything about it. And it's not the Aes Sedai's fault either. It's just no one knows anything about it. She also admitted she's been so focused on Rand and his role in all this that she may have overlooked or dismissed Mat and Perrin. And I just think it's about time she's realised this. Really about time, because I think the sooner she starts realising that she needs to be, or not she, but the people who want this to succeed, to all of this stuff that's going on. People want Rand and Mat and Perrin to succeed in whatever their Tavern role is. But she needs, anyway, it's good. It's a good thing. This was definitely growth for Moraine, admitting she might not always get things right. Also, very convenient, she mentions the world of dreams and then he ends up there. Like, there are some things like that I do notice with and I think it works, don't get me wrong, but Robert Jordan does this where he lays something in a chapter, or at the start of a chapter, or in the previous chapter, and then it happens, it pays off in the next one. I think, again, given the lengthy situation and the breadth of the world building and everything, it's probably the best way that he could go about it, but it's not always the best thing the best way. It's a reminder. I think some of this stuff about World of Dreams has been coming, but he gets this information and then he ends up there very, very soon after. It's a bit convenient, but I mean, it does work, because if Robert Jordan didn't do it that way, people would forget about it and wouldn't know what was going on. So it makes sense. He's going to have to start working with the wolves in that world at the very least, just to keep him safe, I would assume. What did he stumble into And who were the people he saw? Was the woman Lanfear? Black hair? Yes, I think that was Lanfear, yes. Sorry, I got a little bit, when I was reading this, I was very, very tired when I was reading this. So I was like, what's going on? Yes. He stumbled into some things and doesn't really know what's going on. So I think that will become, I really do think now that we know that he knows about it, I think it's going to all start linking in more like what's going on. I think, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. The world of dreams, it's important already, and I think it's just going to get more and more important. Is Hopper going to be his dream companion? That's cool. I just want him to have a wolf friend. Maybe Perrin will trust him quicker because of that. He did have a connection with Hopper. I do wonder whether that's part of the reluctance to sort of really call on the wolves, and because he saw what happens when he does. Hopper died for Perrin, and that will have an impact as well, because he just started to build up a relationship with Hopper, I think, or maybe he was uneasy but maybe was becoming easier. I don't know. I think quite a few things are impacting Perrin's ability to sort of deal with this. It'll come about. Anyway, is Rand being hunted by dogs, or is he just finding a lot of them? I'm assuming he's being hunted. Again, that will become clearer. He has the feel of being hunted. He really does feel like prey in this. He also feels not quite in his right mind, but whether that is linked to the taint, his world changing so much, or even the wounds that won't heal, I'm not really sure, and I don't think we're supposed to know, so that's okay. And it's probably a combination of all of the above. But he definitely feels like he's being hunted, and he's probably not sleeping much either. He's if he's being hunted, especially at night, so he's probably got some sleep deprivation going on there. Poor Rand, but he shouldn't have gone off on his own. Anyway, Chapter 10, Secrets. The sooner the Aes Sedai figure out the villagers won't blindly obey them, like most people, the better for everyone, I think. Even the girls are acting like idiots. I know they've gone through trauma, they're worried about Mat and the Horn, and are probably at breaking point from their incredibly long winter travels. But why would they act that way? Why would they think they are better suited to handling the children of the light than Verin? I know that Verin is a strange kind of character, and especially in comparison to someone like Moraine, who just appears capable. Verin, with maybe her absent-mindedness and everything, I think they're thinking more of themselves than maybe they should be. But I mean, if I was them, I would be thinking, let's not give away what we can do. But they also don't want to get captured, and I think that's still really quite fresh in at least Gwen's mind, is that she does not want to get captured again. So that will be impacting things quite significantly as well. Does not want to be captured. She's been captured by the children of the light before. She's seen what they're capable of. She's been captured by other people who are capable of worse, as far as she can tell. She will not want to get captured again. So I can see, but no, why? They need to understand the world that they now live in, the politics, the strategy, etc., and not just assume they are that they're smarter and more capable than other people. So I think that will be a really big learning experience for them, just like for all of them, is that they need to know when to show their cards and when to hold them. They've made an enemy of Dane Bornhold. It's a shame, as I quite liked his father. I wanted his father to stick around, to a point anyway. And I think he could have come around to tolerating the Aes Sedai, given what he'd seen of the children playing games. And that's a lot worse than I expected to see at this stage. I thought being reunited with the dagger would help, but I think I'd forgotten what he was like in book 1, and Moraine had said that this would need to happen again if they didn't break that contact. or break the connection. So I was surprised, but then when I thought about it, I'm like, oh no, it makes sense, because he was really struggling in the Eye of the World with the dagger, becoming poisoned by it. So this is just impacting him differently than it was before. But so it does make sense. So anyway, I thought that being reunited with the dagger would help him. Maybe it did, and then its presence did its deadly thing, draining him further. And this time, instead of impacting him in that same negative mental health kind of way, and suspicious and deep dark depression and all that, it's really draining his physical health even more. His brush with death might make him grow up a bit, and that probably excites me to see more about Matt's character, because of how bad it's gotten, how close to death he is, to see how different he is when he comes out the other side. I wonder if Gwen is experiencing the world of dreams like Perrin. Are they both going to be spending time in that place? And then that could make their time together in book 1 symbolic foreshadowing, which is really cool. So that when they got separated at after Ch7-13, is that what it's called? Yeah. Anyway, when they got separated in the Eye of the World, the two of them going off together, there was a connection there, but you don't see it until now, and that's kind of cool. And will her dreams of Rand send her off towards him again? She's accepted that her and Rand aren't supposed to be together, which means her attention is likely to shift to Gellert more fully going forward, which is interesting. I'm intrigued. I don't have any feelings one way or the other. I don't really have much to say about Gellert at this stage. I'm sure we will see more of him. Chapter 11, Tarvillon. Now, I know we saw part of Tarvillon in the last book, but I feel this was our proper intro to the Tower, and also in a way to the politics within the Tower, because we got such a brief look at it in the last book. I feel Perrin would have been better off taking the time to tell the girls what to expect and why they needed to stay silent prior to this. But also, Gwen needs to be less hasty. She's acting without thinking. And then I sort of started thinking, how long were they in Tarvillon before they left last time? Surely they all learnt some of the politics of the place then? Or was Gwen so caught up in the novelty of and the idea of new friends that she missed it all? They mustn't have been there for very long though. I can't remember. I know it wasn't very long, but surely they weren't really caught up in the politics at the time. So it makes sense. Nynaeve should know better, but she does have a harder time controlling her temper. So she at least stayed quiet like she was told to. And Elaine at this stage seems to be more of a follower than a leader, which she will need to shake at some point if she is to become queen. She can't be a follower if she is going to be queen, if she wants to be a good queen anyway. Some things said here make me think Tarvillon will fall at some point, that the battle is going to come here, and it's going to fall, and that whether that's symbolic or whether it actually falls, I don't know. Something's going to happen to Tarvillon at some point, whether that's Tarvillon, the physical location, or whether it's Tarvillon, the centre of Aes Sedai politics and the world and training and all that. But I do think it will fall in some way. Perrin is a really intriguing character. I still want to know why she followed Rand in the first place in the Great Hunt. To see history created, to gain knowledge. She has a temper which she's kept in control. So I suppose all Aes Sedai, given their access to the source, must learn to control strong emotions if they want to survive, which says Nynaeve's going to have to learn at some point. Chapter 12, the Amyrlin Seat. Sounds like Perrin is prepared for, I think her name is pronounced Swan. I'm going with Swan. The Amyrlin, to allow Matt to die because he was the one to sound the horn when they all assumed that it would be Rand. So things aren't going according to their plan and they're not happy about it. That says that in all their scheming, Moraine, Perrin and Swan haven't realised the importance of the others. We've talked about that a little bit more, but it's just so constant that it just keeps coming up time and time again in this book. Rand isn't the only Tavern, and everyone but the Dark One has overlooked Gwen and Nynaeve's importance in this whole thing as well. They're all playing a game that they don't fully understand. If they don't start sharing information, this is all going to get very messy. I did read something, I try and stay off social media as much as possible because accidental little spoilers happen. But I did enjoy this, that if people shared information in these books, it would have been a much shorter series. So that's, it made so much sense to me. And that's every time I get frustrated with characters for not sharing information or for not like telling people what they know, that's sharing information, any of that kind of stuff. I do just sit there and say, but then there's 14 books, Ruth. They've got to keep secrets or it will all be over very, very quickly. And they can't share what they don't know as well. So, and that's also a big part of it. I wouldn't be surprised if the Aes Sedai act in a way that makes things more difficult because of their assumptions. They're not, they're assuming that Rand is the only one they need to worry about, so they're acting in a certain way, which I think is really quite clear. But it's making me just, I know this is how they act, I know this is what the Aes Sedai are like, but it doesn't stop me getting frustrated with them. Maybe one day I'll become less frustrated with them. I doubt it, but I'm allowed to get frustrated. That's the beauty of reading. If I get frustrated, it's a good thing. It means that Robert Jordan is his craft as a writer is working. He's making me feel such strong emotions, and I love it. I love that he can make me love these characters and be so frustrated by how they act and get angry and sad and happy about things and make me laugh, and he's doing a good job. So I do get frustrated. That's a good thing. I do get angry. That's a good thing. That's what writers and books are supposed to do. Oh, a couple of questions though. They're not really considering letting Matt die, right? They're more worried that it's too late to help him, right? They're not really even considering letting Matt die. They're not that stupid, are they? I'm not sure that I believe that, that they're worried that it's too late. I do feel that they're actually contemplating not helping him. They're ruthless when they think it's needed, and that can be a good thing. I do think that it can be a good thing, but like if this is what they do, I wouldn't be surprised if this causes some big problems, that they act in a really ruthless way at some point in the future, and because of that things go wrong. So if they, for example, and knowing that I've finished reading the book, so I'm just using this as an example, imagine if the Aes Sedai let Matt die and then the ripple effects of that down the path. They don't know that. They do not have all the information, but they are so arrogant that it wouldn't surprise me if they decided to do things because, and I think that's one of the things that Moraine is really, I do think Moraine is very good at trying to avoid doing anything that impacts the bigger story. But I think she's forgotten that she's now part of that pattern as well and does need to act that two-sided thing. They need to act when necessary. They just need to act. They shouldn't overthink everything. It shouldn't become too complicated. It's complicated. I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated with them in a good way. So Swan ignoring the Ascension is also not a good thing. We will not have seen the last of them. I can almost guarantee it. And they need to be prepared, especially regarding the Domain. the Aes Sedai are in real danger, and I don't think that they understand. I don't think they're taking this threat seriously enough. And maybe if Moraine was there, she would be able to convince Swan that it needed to be treated in a more serious manner. Maybe Varen just hasn't been able to get that across to her. I don't know. I don't like that it's been brushed aside. We have a really different view of the Amelin seat now. In the Great Hunt, we saw her as the Amelin seat. Now, well, probably in the Great Hunt, because we saw those scenes through other people's point of views. Now we're seeing her as a person, not only as a figurehead. I like that she stayed grounded despite her role, probably because the politics doesn't let her forget who she is, and it keeps her grounded and keeps her, like, things just she hasn't been able to forget things, and so it's kept her grounded. But even just like I don't know if it's in this chapter or in another one, but even just the decor of her office, she hasn't let things go to her head. She's really stuck close to her roots, like where she comes from, even though she's really far away from there, again, as we learn. I won't get ahead of myself again though. It's tempting, but I won't do it. So the last chapter for today is chapter 13, Punishments. Swan is fierce, but I loved this chapter. I thought this chapter was fantastic. It took a minute to work out why I liked it so much, but I think it's because one of the Aes Sedai actually took time to explain things to the girls, or at least some things. I know she's left things out, but they deserved to be told of some of this. They deserved to be told off. They were stupid, looking for adventure and glory, and they were just stupid. They shouldn't have done it when they trusted Liandrin. When Swan tells Elaine not to be childish on page 154, I didn't quote it, but she's telling all of them they need to grow up. And I do stand by this. I think this is true. They need to grow up. They're not children. They need to realise that they're not living in their small worlds. I know Elaine's world was maybe slightly bigger than the other two, but she was still incredibly sheltered. They're all sheltered, and it's not fair, but they have to grow up, and they have to do it quickly, and they have to learn and develop and adjust and be adaptable to the situation. They have to do it really quickly. They all need to learn to think before acting and learn to play the Aes Sedai game, or they are not going to survive. This is like one of their biggest priorities at this stage. They have to learn how to survive in this world. It is long overdue for all of the villagers to have this wake-up call, and hopefully it helps. I really enjoyed this, that she called them out for this, because it's what I've been wanting to say to them for a very long time. Elaine has more power and ability than we've seen yet, but I guess that's partially due to no point of view from her, focusing on her. And I think that if we do get that point of view, I think my opinions about Elaine might shift significantly, because at the moment I don't see a lot of value to her as a character. I'm sure that's coming. Like, I actually am sitting there saying I want more of her, because I know there is more to her. So I'm not saying I don't like her. I'm just saying I'm yet to see her relevance and her place in this, and I can take some guesses. I can take some guesses, but I want to see more of her. I want to see her become her own character, and I think we will do this if we get a point of view, or if the others start seeing her a little bit more. Not just, I think they focus on each other. Gwen and Nynaeve focus on each other because they know each other. And I think Elaine drifts into the background because of that. I think that's the problem. She's a bit of a background character at the moment. I want her to become more prominent. I think she will. Gwen possibly still sees her somewhat as a pampered princess, even though they're friends. I think that's really true. Rand saw her quite differently in Eye of the World, but didn't notice her in the Great Hunt. I'm not sure if I don't think he actually noticed her at all. But the view that, when I think back, the view that Rand had of her was was a very male view. He was looking at her as a woman. Gwen is looking at her as a friend, as a pampered princess. Rand saw her very differently, and I like that. I really like seeing how the different characters view each other and how that impacts when we're in their chapters. Moraine sounds like a force of nature. I'd say Elaine will be torn between duty and desire for a while until she can stand up to her mother. Then maybe, when she can stand up to her mother, maybe she'll show more leadership skills then. Maybe she will develop these skills and actually learn to trust herself. Maybe that's what we're actually seeing is, imagine following someone like her mother. Like, imagine living in her mother's shadow and knowing that she's going to get compared to her mother no matter what she does. That's terrifying in its own way, in a completely different way to some of the monsters. That's her life. That's what she's looking forward to, being constantly compared to her mother, who is a force of nature by the sound of things. Swan's approach to the girls is refreshing, especially explaining what happened when Leandrin left. I suppose it's known information in the tower, people know about this, but she explained something. She's treating the girls as the future Aes Sedai that they are, and I think that's a really important step. This chapter, I feel this, she's not telling them everything, but it really was the chapter where the girls stepped into the world of the Aes Sedai. Up until that point, they were just playing at it. Then they weren't really there. They were just sort of on the peripheries, hanging around. But this is the chapter where they get invited in, this and the next. But that's in for another video. So Gwen and Elaine are to become accepted, and will we get to see both of their trials? That will give us major insight into who they are and who they will be in the future. Will Nynaeve stop seeing Gwen as a child? Because she hasn't yet. And I think that could be a point of contention going forward. And I'm really glad that Gwen won't have to remain in a windowless room for long. That's the trauma, like it's that PTSD of being captured. A windowless room will feel like a prison, so I'm glad she won't have to stay there for too long. I think that's really, really great. But that is all for today. I hope you don't mind that I'm going off on some really random ramblings. I'm not sticking as fully to what I've written down in here, but every note that I've written leads me down a rabbit warren. So I'm trying to find that balance of sharing some of those thoughts and insight, knowing that I'm trying to not get ahead of where I'm reading. So I'm talking about things in some of those tangents that are impacted by events that happen later in the book, but start to be seen in the chapter that I'm talking about. I think I'm doing that. But I'm not wanting to give anything away in case there is anyone who is watching this as they read the book, which is possible. I'm not wanting to give any spoilers, which also reminds me, be really mindful of spoilers down in the comments, not just for my sake. Yes, I've finished reading the book, but other people might not have, so be aware of that. And as always, get down, tell me what your experience was. Feel free to comment on if I've got things wrong, like keep doing that, that's fine. But I want to know about your experience of reading the book. That's what I'm really interested to know. Did you react in the same way? Did you love the characters, hate the characters, get frustrated? Did you have that same sense of frustration and anger and I just have so much frustration, don't I? But did you feel the same thing? Did you love the things that are going on between Perrin and Moraine, that power play, that sort of stuff that's going on between them at the moment, which is really, for me, really cool. Did you enjoy these things? Get down in the comments, let me know. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will be back for another video on Friday. And we should be catching up, I think, a little bit on where I got a little bit behind last week. Things are doing a little bit better this week, so hopefully I won't have as much going on in my work life, and I'll be able to keep up to date, but I do apologise if I'm not. Anyway, that's all from me today, and I will catch you down in the comments.